This is the multiple choice section of the Algebra Regents for August 2017. So in question number 1, it says, part of Jennifer's work to solve the equation is shown below. So this part was given, and we want to know how she got from step number 1 to from the given to step number 1. So what property did she do? Well, she took this 2 and multiplied by 6x squared, took the 2 and multiplied by -3. So she was doing the distributive property. That's where you take a number outside and multiply by both things on the inside. In question number 2, which value of x results in outputs for j of x equals 3x minus 2, and b of x is the absolute value of x plus 2. All that you have to do is in your y equals, type in both equations, all right? Type in both equations and see where they cross, all right? That's where the one equation is equal to the other equation. It's the intersection point where they cross. Remember to type in the absolute value. You have to, on the calculator, hit second and then 0, which is that catalog button. That's how you get the ABS, and you would put in ABS parentheses x plus 2 and close your parentheses. It's the absolute value, all right? So anyway, when you graph it, the absolute value looks like this V-shaped graph. 3x minus 2 is this blue straight line. So at what x value do they cross? Well, they cross right here at 2. All right, the intersection point is 2, 4. The 2 is your x value. In question number 3, the expression 49x squared minus 36 is equivalent to what? So you would have to do each of those. Now remember, what this really means, 7x minus 6 squared, that's really 7x minus 6 times 7x minus 6. So you're going to do FOIL, or if you want to call it the double distributed property, you have to do your firsts, 7x times 7x, that's 49x squared. Your outers, 7x times 6 is 42x. Your inners, -6 times 7x is -42x. So we had a positive 42 and -42. Those cancel out. And then our last -6 times +6 is -36. So all that we're left with is 49x squared minus 36 when we do this choice number 3. And that is what we started off with. If you did FOIL or double distributed property to choice 1, 2, or 4, you would not get that answer. In question number 4, they're asking you what the value of the f of 8 is. So all that you have to do, there's 2 different ways to do it. I think the easier way, remember f of x just means y. So this is just an equation that we can type into our y equals. If you type it into the y equals, all you would have to do is look at the table. All right, look at the table for when x is 8. That's all that you really had to do. You could also, another way to do it, which is probably how most of you did it, was to take your 8 and sub it in for x. So you would have 1/2 times 8 squared minus, in parentheses, 1/4 times 8 plus 3. So you could do it that way as well. No matter which way you do, you get choice 3, which is 27. In question number 5, over which interval does the helicopter have the slowest average rate of change? The slowest average rate of change would be the most flat line, because that's the one that's changing the least. The one that's changing the least is the flattest line is right here in between 5 and 10 seconds. In question number 6, in the functions f of x equals the k times x squared and g of x equals the absolute value of k times x, it says that k is a positive integer. If the k is replaced by 1/2, so we're taking this 1/2 and subbing it in for k, taking this 1/2 and subbing it in for k. Which statement about the new functions is true? So what I would do is I would graph, all right, I would graph x squared, because k could just be 1 to start off with. I would graph 1x squared and 1/2 x squared and see how they change. I would graph the absolute value of 1x and the absolute value of 1/2 x and see how they change. Well, what ends up happening is you end up with this blue graph for the x squared and 1/2 x squared. You end up with these V graphs for the 1/2 for the absolute value of x and the absolute value of 1/2 x. How did they change? They got wider. All right, they got wider. This one is the new one here, and this one is the new one here. All right, so the graphs got wider. In question number 7, all that you had to do was type in these equations into your y equals and see which one matched. All right, see which one matched. The one that matches is choice number 1. You get this sort of zigzag type line. In question number 8, which situation does not represent a causal relationship? All right, so which one is not true? All right, which one does not happen all the time? Which one doesn't cause the other one to happen? Well, it would be choice number 2. The faster a student types a research paper, the more pages the research paper would have. That's not always going to happen. All right, it all depends on how many pages you end up with, like how much material you have. You could type 1 page super quick. It doesn't mean that you're going to have more pages just because you're a fast typer. All right. All the other ones are dependent on each other. The higher the volume on the radio, the louder the sound will be. That makes sense. Turning the dial, making it louder, makes the sound louder. The shorter time a car is running, the less gas it's using. If your car is not running at all, you're not using any gas. All right. Number 4, the slower pace of the runner, the longer it will take to finish the race. That is absolutely true. All right. In question number 9, a plumber has a set fee for a house call and charges by the hour for repairs. The total cost of her services can be modeled by 125T plus 95. So the C of T, that's your total, equals, it's 125 times the number of hours plus the $95 fee. So which statement is true? Well, if we look at statement number 1, a house call fee costs $95. Yes, that's this plus 95. So that's true. The plumber charges $125 per hour. 125 times the number of hours, that's true. The number of hours the job takes is represented by T for time. That's true. All 3 of them are true, which is choice number 4. In question number 10, what is the domain of the relation shown below? The word domain means your X values. Range means your Y values. So I went through and I circled all of the X values. So I have a 4, a 1, a 0, a 1, and a 4. Your only X values there are 0s, 1s, and 4s. So that would be choice number 1. Remember, domain means X, range means Y. They go in alphabetical order. What is the solution to the inequality? Well, you just have to solve for X. Now, you have to remember when you're dealing with inequalities like less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to flip the sign. That happens in this question. To try and get all the X's on one side and to try and get all the plain numbers on the other side, the first thing that I would do is subtract 2 from both sides. And I'm going to get all the X's on the other side. So I'm going to do minus X and minus X. Could you have done it the other way? Sure. You could have subtracted 4/9 X from both sides and subtracted 4 from both sides. You could have done it that other way as well. Anyway, these 2's I have canceling out. These X's I have canceling out. So 4/9 minus, that's really a 1X. 4/9 minus 1X is negative 5/9. If you ended up doing it with a decimal, that's perfectly fine as well. Nothing wrong with that. So you might have a decimal here. Negative 5/9 times X, or your decimal equivalent to negative 5/9, which I don't know off the top of my head, is greater than or equal to 2. If you left it as a fraction, you could divide by negative 5/9 and divide by negative 5/9. You could divide by whatever the decimal equivalent of that is, or you can multiply by the reciprocal. No matter which way you're doing it, you're either multiplying or dividing by a negative number, so you have to flip the sign. Notice that my greater than or equal to changes into a less than or equal to, because you have to flip the sign when you multiply or divide by a negative number. If you were using decimals, you might have to change these fractions into decimals to see which one is the equal decimal to that. All right. It's really negative 3.6. All right. If you change it to a decimal. So in question number 12, this is one of those questions that they give you extra information that you don't need. You don't need to know that he wants to burn 250 calories. You don't need to know that he's exercising for 45 minutes. Quite honestly, this first sentence, don't need. This second sentence, you don't need either. On the treadmill, he can burn 6 calories per minute. I don't care. On the stationary bike, he can burn 5 calories per minute. Which expression represents the number of calories that Connor can burn on the stationary bike? Well, on the stationary bike, he can burn 5 calories per minute. So 5 times the number of minutes. It says that B represents the number of minutes. So 5 times the number of minutes. Just answer number 2. They give you a lot of excess information there. In question number 13, which value of X satisfies this equation? You have to take the number outside the parentheses, multiply it by both of the things inside parentheses. I'm not a fraction person. I don't necessarily like working with fractions, so I changed them to decimals. All right, I multiplied them out and I changed them to decimals. So I have this decimal minus this decimal, X equals 16. Now it's just the 2-step equation. Subtract it, divide by negative 0.83 repeating on both sides. Always do top divided by bottom. When you do that, you get negative 18.825, which is choice 2. In question number 14, this one was a hard one. All right, if you got this one wrong, I would not be surprised. If a population of 100 cells triples every hour, triples means multiplying by 3. Think about a triple in baseball or softball, you get 3 bases. Triple means you multiply by 3. If it triples every hour, which function P represents P of T, the population after T hours? This would be an exponential equation. So you'd have your original number, which is your 100, times we're multiplying by 3 to the T power, 3 because it's tripling. All right. It would not be a linear function. These 3 and 4 are linear functions. It would not be linear functions. So what you really needed to know was the original number goes outside, and then however it's changing is to the T power. So that's choice number 2. In question number 15, we have a pattern question. A sequence of blocks is shown in the diagram below. So in the first picture, there's a total of 1 block. In the second picture, there's a total of 3 blocks. In the third picture, there's a total of 6 blocks. Fourth picture, there's a total of 10 blocks. So what is the pattern there? Well, we're adding by 2. We're adding another row to the bottom. So we're adding by 3. We're adding another row to the bottom. We're adding by 4. The next one would be adding by 5. So 10 plus 5 is 15. The next one, we would add a row of 6. So we get to 21. The next one, we would add a row of 7. So we get to 28. They want to know how many would be in that 7th picture. So it would be 28. In question number 16, this one was sort of a hard one too. All right, Mario's $15,000 car depreciates. That means it goes down in value at a rate of 19% per year. So they took the way that they got this 0.81 was 0.19% is really 0.19. They did 1 minus 0.19 to get that 0.81 there because it's going down. So you need a number that's less than 1. If it was increasing in value, we would do 1 plus whatever that percent is. Which function is equivalent to the original one? Well, you don't even need to know that adding and subtracting part. You could just graph both of these and see which one matches. All right. A lot of times you can get away with just graphing things and seeing where they cross or where they're equal to each other or when they match. This graph matches this graph. Instead of a V, this would be your Y equals. But if you type both of those in and graph them, they will be the exact same graph. So that's where they're equal to each other. In question number 17, the highest possible grade for a book report is a 100. The teacher deducts 10 points, so takes off 10 points for each day it's late. Which kind of function describes the situation? Well, if you're subtracting the same amount of points each time, it has to be linear because you're going down by the same amount each time. That's the definition of linear. Number 18, the function h of x, which is here in the black, is graphed below. And the function g of x is this. So the first thing that I did is I graphed that second one. All right, type it into your y equals, and then do second and table to find your points. So that's how I got the graph of this g of x here in the red. Which statements about the functions are true? G of x has a lower min than the h of x. Well, here's the min for g of x. Here's the min for h of x. Is that lower? Yes, it is. That's a true statement. For all values of x, the h of x is less than the g of x. Well, the h of x is actually higher than or greater than the g of x. So that is not true. For any value of x, g of x does not equal h of x. Are there anywhere where these two things cross, where they're equal to each other? No, they don't cross at all. So that is a true statement at all. Also, which statement about these is true? It would be that 1 and 3 are true, which is choice 2. In number 19, the zeros of the function, blah, 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 are the zeros. That word zeros, you should automatically be thinking the zeros are the x-intercepts. So I should graph it. When you graph it, you get this picture. Where are the zeros? Well, it's at 0, it's at 2 on the x-axis, and it's at 3 on the x-axis. So that is choice number 3. The zeros are where it crosses the x-intercept. In question number 20, this one was maybe a little bit difficult because there was a lot of work to do for a single multiple choice question. It says, how many of the equations listed below represent the line passing through the points 2, 3 and 4, -7? Here's how I would do this one. There's probably a couple different ways that you could do it, but I would rearrange them for y equals. All right, so you got to get the y all by itself. Notice like in this first one, I subtracted 5x from both sides to get the y all by itself. In this second one, I did the distributive property first and then subtracted 7 from both sides to get the y all by itself. In this one, I did the distributive property first and then added 7 to get the y all by itself. And then in this third one, you had the y all by itself already. So when I did that, notice that this graph, I'm going to go to the highlighter here. Notice that this equation, and this equation are all the same equation. All right. So all three of those are the same. If you go to graph it, do they go through the points 2, 3, and 4, 7? Well, you could check the table, second and table, and see if that's what it is. All right. Go to x equals 2, go to x equals 4, see if they're 3 and -7. These three are. When you rearrange this other equation, notice that you get y equals 5x -13. That is a totally different equation. So again, you'd have to go to the graph, go to your table, and see if they go through 2, 3, and 4, -7. This one does not. All right, that one doesn't go through it. So how many equations go through those points? There are 3 of them, which is choice 3. This one was a hard one too. All right. So it says the Ebola virus has an infection rate of 11% per day. SARS virus has a rate of 4% per day. If there were 1 case of Ebola and 30 cases of SARS initially, so that's the number that goes outside the parentheses. The infection rate means that it's going up each day. All right, it's getting higher and higher. So when we go to figure it out for 10 days, you would have this equation. You'd have a 1 outside because it says for Ebola, it starts off with 1 case, 1 plus 0.11. Remember what we did here was we moved the decimal point over 2 places. So this becomes 0.11. We move the decimal point over 2 places. So this becomes 0.04. That's where I'm getting the 0.11s from and the 0.04s from. So anyway, one case, an 11% increase. So 1 plus this to the x power. They want to know at day 10 and they want to know at day 53. So at day 10, there's 3 cases. Day 53, there's 252 cases of the Ebola. For SARS, it's a 4% increase, and it starts off with 30 cases. So 30 is the number that goes outside the parentheses. 4% increase, we're adding 0.04 to it. For 10 days, it's 44 cases. At day 53, it's 240 cases. So they want to know which statement is true. Well, the true statement is choice number 3. At day 10, there are more SARS cases. Day 10, 44 versus 3, so that's true. But at day 53, there's more Ebola cases, 252 compared to 240. That one's a hard one. Question number 22. This one should have been an easy one. The results of a linear regression are shown below. Remember, you're looking at the R value. Which phrase best describes the relationship between X and Y? They want to know whether it's strong or weak, positive or negative correlation. Your R value, notice, is negative. Since your R value is negative, I could cross off positive. I could cross off positive. 2 and 4 are not the answers because your R value is negative. Well, what makes strong versus weak? What makes it strong is it has to be close to 1 or -1. This one, 0.89 is very close to -1. A weak would be closer to 0. So that one should have been pretty easy. In question number 23, this one gets a little bit wordy. Abigail's and Gina's ages are consecutive integers. Abigail is younger than Gina, and Gina's age is represented by X. So stopping right there, not reading the rest of it yet. Gina's age is represented by X. Notice what I have in this blue square here. Gina's age is X. Well, if they have to be consecutive and Abigail is younger than Gina, it would be Gina's age -1, because that will give you those consecutive numbers. So this is for Abigail, this is for Gina. Now we're going to set up this equation. If the difference means to subtract. If the difference of the square of Gina's age, so Gina's age squared, that's going to give you this X squared right here. Gina's age squared, and the 8 times Abigail's age. 8 times X -1, because X -1 was Abigail's age, is 17. Is means equals 17. And notice that we are taking the difference of them. That's why you have the subtraction sign there. So which one matches that? It is choice number 4. That one was a little bit wordy. And the last one, which system of equations does not have the same solution as the system below? Well, when I take a look, I need to solve this system first and then do the other ones. So when I solve this system, remember, you want to multiply to create opposites. 4 is not the opposite of -6. 3 is not the opposite of -5. So I need to multiply to create my own opposites. So if I multiply this top equation and this bottom one, 3 times 5 is 15. So I want to create a 15y and a -15y to get my opposites. Remember that you have to distribute. When I go through and then I have my opposites, I want to add going down. Those opposites cancel out. So then I solve the rest of it for X. You end up with X equals 1. Sub that X equals 1 back in for X into either one of the equations, and you get Y equals 2. So my answers are X equals 1 and Y equals 2. Then what you would have to do is go through and solve each of these and see which one does not have the same solution. All right. Hopefully you read the word not. So when you solve number 1, choice number 1, you get 1, 2. When you solve choice number 2, you get 1, 2. When you solve choice number 3, you get 1, 2. When you solve choice number 4, you end up with an x value of 49. 49 is not 1. So that has to be the